Alright, so today I'm going to be working on my new walk-behind mower here. It's a Scag walk-behind with a 52 Advantage deck, and it needs a couple of things. So when you turn the blades on, it's got a automatic PTO here. So when you turn the blades on, the engine stalls right away. So that means something's binding up and something's seized up or something like that. So we're going to look under this cover here. And see what that's all about. It also needs all new belts, so I ordered those. I know the one under there has a chunk taken out of it for the blades, and then these belts I have coming in too. The other issue it has is fourth gear here is a little weird. It's like it'll go and then it's not smooth. It's a little bumpy, I guess you could say. So we're gonna dive into that as well. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take this cover off here and then see what all that's all about. All right, so I have this cover off here. I have the blades disengaged from the engine, but if I try and pull this here, I mean, this should spin really, really freely, but it feels and sounds like something's binding up. So we're gonna take the belts off these pulleys, and then maybe one of the bearings in these pulleys are seized up. All right, so I took that belt off, and you can see this thing definitely needed to be changed. That thing was long gone. Tons of cracks in it, chunks taken out of it. But over here, this set of spindles spins freely and seems smooth. All the spindles are tight. These spindles are the pulley here, and this spindle seems smooth and tight. So I think it must be something with the automatic PTO. Alright, so I have the mower running here, and we're just going to try and engage the blades without the belt and see what happens. Alright, the engine's still running. Alright, so since that didn't stall the engine, I think maybe the belt was just too tight or something like that, but I'll mess with it more once I get the new belt in. Alright, so the next thing I want to do with this mower is do a compression test. Now, I like to do these compression tests like whenever I get a new machine, because it can really tell you what kind of damage has been done to the cylinders and as well as the rings. And so all you need to do that is this cheap little compression tester. You can buy them off Amazon, they're like 10 bucks. So what you need to do is just take out the spark plugs, and let's see, the spark plugs are over here. There's two of them on this engine. And then you just thread that into the spark plug hole and turn it over and see what kind of reading you get. Alright, so on this cylinder we got about 101, 102 psi. So now we're going to check the other side. Alright, so on this side we got about 101 psi. Alright, so I just looked online, and the minimum compression for each cylinder on this engine is 57 psi. So that means that there's very little wear on the cylinder walls as well as the rings. And this engine still has a lot of power, so that's definitely a good thing. I'm happy about that. I also want to look into the carburetor and see if we can clean that out a little bit. It starts to run a little rough once you get to idle speeds, so we'll see if we can clean that out, or maybe we need to buy a new rebuild kit. Alright, so I have the air filter off. The guy I bought this thing from, he actually gave me a brand new air filter for it, and it's the Kawasaki genuine part, so that's a good thing, and a pre-filter. But the one on here really doesn't look that bad at all. Looks really clean. Maybe I'll install the new pre-filter. But anyway, to get this carb off, it looks like I just have to remove these two bolts right here. You can't really see them, they're covered in dirt. And then remove the looks like a vacuum line here and a fuel line there, and then we should be good to go. Alright, so I got the carb taken off here, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this bowl and see what we got. Alright, so I have this carb apart here. Didn't really look too bad. Everything's pretty much clean except for the bowl here, which has a little bit of corrosion and stuff. I cleaned it out as best I could. It might be time for a new bowl and some other parts, maybe a rebuild kit soon, but for now I'm just going to put it all back together because it did run pretty good as it is. But if it does start to run rough, I'll replace some of these parts in here and deal with it then. Alright, so I have the carb all back together here, so now I'm just going to go ahead and install it back on the mower. Alright, so that's all back together. Let's see how it runs. Alright, this thing runs really good now. Really smooth. Alright, let's check out this transmission. Alright, so now it's time to dive into this transmission. So anytime I dive into something like this and I don't exactly know what's under there, I always go online, and all I did is, you can see that this is the 700 series because it's the 700, so it's a Peerless. All I did was Google the Peerless 5-speed transmission, and then over here you can see the first link was Tecumseh Peerless transmissions for all the models, and I went to this chapter. It's for the 700 series transmission, and it tells you exactly how to disassemble it. So all I got to do is just take off the bolts around the top of the case. So I'm not even going to remove this from the mower yet. I'm just going to take it off and see what I find underneath there for the 4th gear. So I can do that now, but before I take that cover off, what I like to do is, for something like this, I like to clean the outside of the transmission first, so that when I take it off, none of the dirt or anything from the outside of the transmission gets onto the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and then remove this top cover. Alright, so I cleaned this transmission up around the seam here, and then I also took off this gear selector here. I didn't remove this because I don't want to take it off from there and deal with readjusting that if I don't have to. So I'm going to remove all these bolts around here, try and pull the top cover off and see if I can get it off without removing that. Alright, so I did just remove this top cover, and I looked under there, but I can't really see anything, so I decided I am going to try and remove this transmission. So in order to do that, I'm going to remove these side covers, and then the spring and everything, and then these 2 bolts here, and then this whole shaft should slide out of here. This is just a coupler. So that's a good design, because on my other mower, I had to remove these pulleys, and they're just a pain. So those things are probably seized on there, so I'm glad I don't have to pull those off. But I do have to pull this pulley down here. You can't really see, but there's a pulley right here off from the input to the transmission, so I have to see if I can even get that one off. So I'll do that first. Alright, so I got this transmission taken out. It was actually super easy to take it out. That pulley I thought was going to be a pain to get off of the shaft here, but someone must have had this off before and actually packed a bunch of grease on that shaft, so it really just pulled right off. It wasn't stuck on there at all. And these, I said before, those were just couplers, so that was super easy to slide off. The bolts on the bottom came right off, and I just pulled it right out. So now I have 2 bolts in here just for now, but let's take those out and take a look inside. Alright, so I got the transmission all taken apart. I already removed this shifter arm here. And so these are the gears. Right now it's neutral, but it looks like this is 5th gear and this is 4th gear, 3rd, 2nd, and the 1st, and then this spur gear here is reverse. So what we're going to do is just take this whole thing apart. These just pull right out. Take these 2 things out, probably wipe off as much of this grease is called bentonite. So probably wipe off as much of the bentonite as I can, and then probably soak it in diesel fuel or maybe something a little bit more mild, and to get the remainder of that off. And then we'll look inside, see which one, see this 4th gear here, maybe it's the one over here, and see what's damaged with that. Alright, so I got the transmission taken apart here. It's a bunch of, this bentonite is really sticky, so everything's a mess, but these are the gears here, and I figured out there's 4 of these around this shaft here. And when you shift the gears, they slide over, and these ends, here's 2 gears that are, or a couple gears here that are, I cleaned off a little bit, and then 4 of these will stick into here and engage that specific gear, whichever one. They're all in a line, and then they engage in one specific gear. So I found that a lot of these, if it'll focus here, are kind of chewed up. They got a chunk out of this one, chunk out of this one. They're kind of bent out of shape. So I think I need to replace these. And then here's 4th gear here, the one that was giving me issues. And you can see in here, on all 4 corners, you can see right there, it's not square anymore. It's kind of rounded off. So, and it's on every single one of these corners. So it would engage this gear, and you could drive in that gear, but it wasn't smooth. Like I think it would engage for a while, and then it would slip, and then it would catch again and go. So I was definitely losing that gear, I think that's the issue. So on all these, it has a little bit of wear, but that's by far the worst one. So I think that's our issue right there. I'm going to go ahead and still clean all this up, put all new bentonite in it, because it does look like there's some sparklies in here. This is the other side of the case. I don't know if you guys can see, but it does look like there's some sparklies in there. I don't know if that's just what the bentonite looks like, or it's metal shavings, but I'm going to go ahead and just change all that out anyway. So I'm going to continue to clean all these parts, soak them in a solvent, and then put all new grease in. Alright, so I got these parts all cleaned up. I soaked them in diesel fuel, and I looked at all the other gears more, and I do think I need the new 4th gear. So I went ahead and ordered that along with new shift keys, because these are a little bit rounded or beat up. Not too bad, but I ordered some new ones anyway. Then I also scraped out both sides of the transmission. I didn't go crazy. There's still a little bit in there, but I think that's fine. And then I ordered some new bentonite grease. So now we just have to wait for parts. Alright, so I got all my new parts in. We have 4th gear, and I accidentally ordered the 5th gear too, so I figured that I might as well just replace that one too. So I have brand new 4th and 5th gear. I cleaned everything off, soaked it in diesel, and then just wiped everything off except for these, which are brass. And you don't want to put these in diesel because that can screw them up. But everything is cleaned off. I got rid of all the old gasket along the mating surface between these two pieces. And then I'm going to put new gasket maker on. This is high temp. You probably don't need high temp. I just happen to have that. So yeah, and then I have all the instructions for putting it back together according to Peerless. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and reassemble everything. Alright, so I got these gears I'll put on the shafts. Everything's in order. I put a little bentonite on the shift keys as I put them in, so there's bentonite grease inside of these gears. Now all that's left is to put the bentonite I measured out, which you're supposed to use 12 ounces. So I have just over 12 ounces in there. So we're going to put that in here, and then we're going to put the chain on here on these 2 gears, install those, and then we're going to re-clean this surface, make sure there's no grease on there, put the gasket maker on there, and then put this on and torque everything down. Okay, I have everything reassembled. All the grease is put in. Everything is all lubed up, ready to go. Now what I just have to do is put the gasket maker along this seam here. I already put some underneath here before I put the gears inside. So that's sealed from the bottom there. Then I just have to put the gasket maker all along this mating surface here, and then put the top on. We're gonna hand tighten these bolts, let it sit for an hour to let the gasket maker harden up a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and torque everything down. That way it squeezes all the air bubbles out and everything like that. Alright, so I got this thing all put back together. Putting it back together was basically just the same as taking it apart in reverse order. I put on some brand new belts. You see, here are the old ones here. I made sure that when I put this new transmission, or the rebuilt transmission on, I made sure to put some grease in the hole for that pulley there, so if I ever need to take it off again, it'll be super easy. And then yeah, just everything is good now. Everything seems to still be adjusted properly with the new belts. Everything seems to be working fine. I haven't test driven it yet, but we will. The other thing I want to do is install these brand new spark plugs, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. In order to do that, I'm just going to take the boot off, and then just unscrew that spark plug and put the new one in. Alright, so after everything, this mower seems to drive and operate pretty good. Transmission, I haven't had any issues with that. Really everything works great. I mean, it starts on the first pull, runs, drives straight, you know. I mean, the issue with the blades turning on just turned out to be that the belts underneath this cover here were too tight, and after loosening those up a bit, I mean, the thing just, it works great. So the only other thing I'm going to do to it is change the oil in it. I have a new filter for it as well, but I'm not going to do that on camera because it's just an oil change. I don't really think I need to film that. But yeah, so all in all, this thing seems pretty good. So thanks for watching.